Impeachment. For more, I'm joined by Democratic Congressman Representative Krishnamoorthi of Illinois. He's a member of the House Intelligence and Oversight Committee. Congressman, what is going on here? Is this a smokescreen? I get the feeling that all this stuff, bringing back John Dean, I mean, what's this, the golden oldies? We're bringing in, it's like a top 60s radio station. Why are we bringing back a guy from the 70s when you should be beginning impeachment if you're real? Your thoughts?
Well, I'm a classic rock fan and a 90s music fan, but going to your question, you know, John Dean obviously has a historical perspective that few other people have, and I think that, you know, him coming before the Judiciary Committee will help to educate the American public about the seriousness of the charges that were made in the Mueller report. So I think that's probably a good thing, but ultimately we need to have Bob Mueller on Capitol Hill.
Why?
Well, I think only Bob Mueller can explain the findings in a way that will actually gather attention from the American public. I think there will be a Super Bowl-sized audience tuning into him. He's the oracle of truth. Every word that he says has a certain gravitas, and people really pay attention.
Do you believe, you're on television now, Congressman, you're a great fellow, I can tell, if he is box office, if he draws a huge audience, not just the great debates, if he has the biggest audience there, if he comes off with tremendous personality and credibility, do you believe that will start the impeachment process?
Possibly. I mean, I think
wait
it really...
a minute. Then why are you doing all this stuff? Why have John Dean and him come? If you won't even say if he's box office, if he's fabulous, if he makes a passionate case, you've got to do it. Do you think you'll do it?
Do you think that he would be able to set off an impeachment process?
If he said basically it's your turn under the Constitution, my job was to investigate, your job under the Constitution is to be the prosecutors, the Senate's the judge, you are the prosecutors, do your job. If he says it like that, would that work?
Possibly. I think the reason why I say that is because, you know, right now in our town in Washington, there are few people that could, you know, earn the trust and goodwill of the American people in the same way Bob Mueller can. And that's why it's so important for him to come to Capitol Hill and give us some guidance and tell us exactly what he meant with certain of the statements that he made in his report. We have so many questions for him, but I think that him coming to Capitol Hill would be a special time in this whole impeachment, or this whole saga with regard to the Mueller probe.
You know what it looks like. It looks like you're coming up with one excuse to have it. First, we want the Mueller report. Then we want to hear more from him. He gives us another speech last week. Now we want to hear him testify. Then we want to hear from McGahn. And now we want to hear from McGahn's secretary. Then we want to hear from Hope Hicks. And then we want to hear from... And then we'll think about it. Do you really honestly tell me you think it's June? If it's August, will you have moved by then? When will you begin to move, if you're going to move? My theory is now or never. In other words, if you're not going to move right now, there's no time later, because the presidential campaign is in full swing by September.
Well, I think that here's the thing. If you start the impeachment process without sufficient evidence to sustain a potential conviction, it could be seen as an empty exercise, and worse, it could embolden the president and his misconduct. He could then claim total exoneration.
I hear you.
And that would be horrible.
That's an argument. Why don't you make that argument? Why does the Speaker Pelosi make that argument? It doesn't make any sense to impeach because we won't get a conviction. It's not a matter of time. It's not about hearing from more witnesses. It doesn't make any sense. You guys on the Hill, men and women, Democrats and Republicans, even though they won't admit it, you saw obstruction of justice. You saw a president of the United States fire an FBI director because he wouldn't play ball with him. You saw the president, through McGahn's testimony, that he tried to fire the special counsel. If that's not obstruction of justice, what the hell is?
It's clearly obstruction, and it's impeachable. Good. I think the question is, when do we start the impeachment process? Do we start it now, or do we start it when we have all the evidence we can to potentially get a conviction?
When would that be?
I think now we have to pursue the investigations. We've already seen some success in the courts with regard to getting financial records. That is an area of inquiry that Bob Mueller did not have a chance, or did not have an opportunity, or decided not to pursue. And I believe those financial records have a lot of very important information in them.
I'll make a gentleman's bet with you that we're having the same conversation come this fall, and there will be no impeachment exercised by the Democrats. That's just a gentleman's bet. I trust your judgment as well. Thank you, U.S. Congressman.